Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today I'm making a tier list for late October. This is after the Milwaukee Regional Championships, but before the Lille Regional Championships. And the way I'm going to make this tier list today is I'm going to rank the S tier decks as the decks that I would most expect to win a major event right now. And then the way we'll go is then tier A will be, well, if the tier S decks didn't win, what other decks would win? And if the tier A decks didn't win, what decks would go into tier B? Those would be the next in line that I would expect to win the event if tier A didn't win and if tier S didn't win. And then, those tier S decks will also be expected to maybe dominate the top 8, top 16, top 32. Then if those don't fill out the top 8, top 16, 32, then maybe the tier A are, and then tier B, and so far and so forth. So we'll be going from top down with today's tier list, and that will be so I can, rank the decks accordingly. So I'm not going to put I'm not going to just immediately put Alakazam to Dunsparce into tier D because I think it's not very good, because we might not even have room for it in tier D. That might go in like tier E or F and not even make the tier list. So we're going to go top down today. And of course, we're going to start with Gardevoir. Specifically Gardevoir Jellicent. I think I'll also put regular Gardevoir into the tier S, but Gardevoir Jellicent is a very strong deck that, you have item lock and tool lock, I suppose, as well, but specifically item lock, very, very strong. And you'll win some games just because of item lock, but this is a deck that has essentially a chance to win into just about anything, I'd say. It even has a chance to win into something like En's Zoroark, which is probably the deck's absolute worst matchup. But yeah, can win into anything. It has item lock, it has Screamtail, it has TM Devo. Of course, Gardevoir and Monkey are just incredibly powerful, even before you include the Frillish and the Jellicent and the Screamtail and all the other good stuff that's in the deck. So yeah, Gardevoir Jellicent is S tier. And then I'll also put regular Gardevoir into S tier, basically saying, I expect going into any major event right now that one of these two decks are the most likely to win the whole event. Now, before we go further, I do want to just mention I have something called the Competitive Pokemon TCG Masterclass. This has helped almost now 200 students reach their goals and become the player that they want to be. You can see here, this is all the content within the masterclass. We have a couple of reviews down here. If you have purchased it already and you want to leave a review, I would totally appreciate that, regardless if it's positive, mixed, or negative. I just want to get the reviews filled out. But this is over 7 hours of content right now, not including PDFs of systems to use and PDFs of things to remember. And then we also have some written content within here. And I've just added a full gameplay example. It's a 30-minute video of me playing Gardevoir Jellicent. And then I've also just added an hour-long deck building lecture that's relevant to right now in the game. And I plan to add about 2 to 3 more hours of content to this masterclass within the next few weeks to round out the end of 2025. So if you're interested in getting better at the game, check this out. It is $100, but I've had so many people tell me that it is worth the money because a coaching session is usually about $50, $60, or $70 an hour, and you're going to learn more than I could ever possibly teach you in a single coaching session or even in 2 coaching sessions from this guide. So the link will be down below to go check that out. I also want to shout out TC Evolutions. You can use code CELIO10 to save 10% off here. And what I currently use from TC Evolutions, I have the dice box, which is magnetic and looks amazing. I have the insert that goes into the deck box, which unfortunately is currently sold out on here. But you can use the dice box without the insert, absolutely. And then I use a mix of the smaller die that go from 10 to 6, and then I don't know if I use any of the 7 to 120, but I have the 130s to 180s, the 190s to 240s. And these are really nice just to have like a combination of dice that you can grab and flip through. And you don't have to add up all of the 6-sided 1-dot die. if that's not your style. They also do have just the regular dice if you want those, but I do really, really enjoy using these and playing Grimmsnarl at Milwaukee a couple of weeks ago. Having these, especially the 10 through 60s, were lifesavers because I could just tick my Frostlasses up easily and then tick back down from 6 to 30 or 30 just take it off, or 40 to 10 with the monkeys. So yeah, really, I think it's really, really convenient to have these kinds of die, and it probably saved me some time over the course of my matches in Milwaukee, flipping through all the counters, especially with the kind of deck I was playing. And then if you're somebody who likes to put a counter on your Pokemon when you use an ability, these are really sleek. They don't take up a lot of space. There's even a spot for them right on the side of the insert if you end up getting one of these inserts for your dice box. And then of course, dual spec. These are the sleeves I'm currently playing at tournaments and playing with at home. I want to get the color name right here. I used the Taro Pro Blackout sleeves for Milwaukee, so I used them for all 8 rounds of phase one and then the first round of phase two, since all those 9 rounds were played on the same day. And over the course of those 9 best of 3 rounds, which I played a lot of Pokemon in those, I went to time a lot. I played a lot of Pokemon. There was a lot of shuffling. I think during day one's 9 rounds, I changed out maybe 6 sleeves. Like I sit down every other round, sometimes every round when it's getting later into the tournament, and I'll check my sleeves, look at the sides, check for dog ears, make sure there's no rips or marks or anything. And I think I changed about 6 sleeves over the course of day one, which was a pretty low count. And then day one and day two combined, I only had one sleeve like get damaged in the middle of like a shuffle or something. So I had one of those happen. And then I changed out like 2 or 3 others during day two just for like marks or creases or dog ears or whatever. So overall, over the course of what was it, 14 rounds we played or 15 rounds we played in Milwaukee, a best 2 out of 3. I used the one box for the first 9 rounds, the other box for the second 5 rounds. So, um, and yeah, not a lot of issues with the sleeves over the course of that. And then there's also the regular matte sleeves, the XD sleeves. So these are black, like dual matte, if you've used Dragon Shield dual matte. And I do think typically the dual matte sleeves, these are newer in the industry. I do think these have less durability overall, but I will say I've been shuffling my day two Milwaukee sleeves at my desk every day since Milwaukee, and like maybe once a day I'll have a sleeve rip and I'll change it out and get back to shuffling, or I'll notice that one has a really awful dog ear. But for the most part, I riffle and I mash shuffle, and these sleeves have been pretty good. But I do think that if you're looking for really long-term longevity, I do think the originals are better for longevity. However, the blackout sleeves are really buttery smooth right out of the box, feel great to shuffle. So just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a review there, and also use code Celio for 10% off if you do decide to shop over at Dual Spec. So Dual Spec, TC Evolutions, the Masterclass, if you'd like to learn more about the game, the fundamentals, and go from where you're at now to topping locals to getting day twos to earning cash, this is the one-stop place to learn all of that at. Now let's get back into the tier list. So I think we're doing a tier list today. So yeah, Gardevoir, Jellicent, and Gardevoir at the top. Now, tier A, we're going to put Charizard into tier A. Charizard, Pidgeot, Dusknoir. I think the Dusknoir is definitely a huge part of the power level of this deck. I know there have been some people that liked Slow Zard or Zard Pidgeot without the Dusknoir. I know Azul liked that a lot. Sebastian, somebody I follow on Metafy and commonly buy their guides, liked Slow Zard going into Milwaukee. But the Dusknoir just adds so much power. The Klefki plus Dusknoir combo was essential to take down the Mega Absol box at Milwaukee weekend. So, and Charizard did win. So while I still do think that Gardevoir, Jellicent, and Gardevoir are overall the strongest decks we have, and I just feel, yeah, if I was putting money on this, I would say I'm betting on one of the Gardevoirs to win the tournament. But if one of the Gardevoirs don't win the tournament, then the next in line that I expect it to be would be Charizard, Pidgeot, Dusknoir. After that, Dragapult Dusknoir is kind of nice. Mega Absol Box, although I do think Mega Absol Box will be getting a little bit of counter. People are going to be more aware of what the deck is doing, maybe playing decks specifically to beat it, maybe putting in cards specifically to beat it. But I do think the Dragapult Dusknoir and Mega Absol Box can go into the A tier along with Charizard Pidgeot, and probably in that order so far. So, we're looking at Leal this weekend. I'd say my decks that are most likely to win Leal and top 8 Leal are currently in that order: Gardevoir Jellicent, Gardevoir, Charizard Pidgeot, Dragapult Dusknoir, Mega Absol Box. Now, going into the next tier down, we'll get Grimmsnarl in there, we'll get En's Zoroark in there, and I'll talk about a couple of differences we have between these decks as well. I just want to, while I'm thinking about these, put them all up in there. I think Ceruledge could probably go here as well. So Grimmsnarl Frostlass is almost like playing Guardy without playing Guardy sometimes, with just like the monkey and the damage, and it can be very. I should say it's like playing a Guardy that's not Guardy when you're playing against Guardy. Like the way that the Guardy versus Grim goes, like when both players are playing on all cylinders, almost feels like a chess match. It can be very, very tactical. But I do think that Grimmsnarl Frostlass has less consistency than the other decks, less raw power than the other decks. Still very solid, but not what I would not expect Grimmsnarl Frostlass to win the event unless these 5 decks did not win the event. And I think I'm gonna put Enzoric at the bottom of B here. So, Ceruledge is a really strong deck, straightforward, doesn't need a lot of hard thinking. So, like, you're not going to tire your brain out over the course of the day playing this deck. Um, it is, yeah, a pretty strong, straightforward deck, and I think it has about a about as great of a chance to do well as these other decks in tier B, but obviously not as good as the ones in tier A. Goldango. So the Goldango decks are in a little bit of a weird spot. I think Goldango Lunatone is not unfavored against Charizard Pidgeot. It's even, or maybe even slightly favored, whereas regular Goldango just straight up is a bad matchup into Charizard. The Zoroark and Lunatone change a lot. But then if you want to be okay against cornerstone stuff, you're going to be finding text to put in there, like a 1/1 line of Mega Lucario. Or I've seen some people tossing around the idea of just playing Erica's Invitation, like against Mega Absol Box, just snipe a Mega out of their hand into the active and then take 3 with Goldango. That's an option if you want to go that route. You could always just play Baby Goldango, but that doesn't really do enough a lot of times if you're against a cornerstone deck that can heal their cornerstone or can tank their cornerstone up with like Bravery Charm, Heroes Cape, Lively Stadium. So Goldango's in a little bit of a weird position. And then En's Zoroark. So En's Zoroark is the deck with the best Gardevoir Jellicent matchup, I believe, which is great. And it has a fine regular Guardy matchup. Like, if you're really good at Zoroark and you're playing against people who are not like Gardevoir lifers, then you'll probably beat whatever Gardevoir variant you play. But if you play against somebody who's put time and thought into the matchup and they don't think it's just a scoop because it's a dark deck, then it's probably going to actually be pretty close against the Gardevoir variants that have like Screamtail, Drifloon, Double Bravery Charm, or the Enamorous Turbo Energize even. So just a heads up there, it's not free just into every Gardevoir, especially when you get into some really good players playing it. And I feel like Zoroark, it's a great card because it draws a lot of cards. Its attack is mediocre, of course copying En's Reshiram. And due to that, you have to have this deck where you need to be able to counter everything with enough cards in the deck. Like, because you can only have 60 cards in the deck, and you have to figure out, how do I make this deck 50-50 or better against the whole field? That's the kind of deck Zoroark is. And then maybe you take a loss or two. So, maybe you could say, okay, I'll take a loss to Ceruledge and the Goldengo decks, which is a huge chunk of decks, might not be the best idea. And okay, I'm beating Gardevoir, Jellicent. I'll beat a lot of the other regular Gardevoirs, but then I'm unfavored in the Charizard Pidgeot. Grimmsnarl's a weird matchup. Dragapult's a weird matchup without Psyduck. Mega Absol has Cornerstone and Monkeys and big Pokemon. So then you're thinking, okay, maybe I'll add in Okidogi EX to get through the cornerstones, or maybe I'll play Cornerstone myself and Hero's Cape with the monkeys, and then I can be a Cornerstone Cape Monkey deck versus like Charizard and Grimmsnarl. So there are a lot of ways you can go with Zoroark, but I think at the end of the day, the decks in A tier and S tier are just more powerful than Zoroark right now. Then we'll go into C tier. Raging Bolt Ogerpon is fine. It's actually pretty good into Mega Absol. But I tend to think that like playing Raging Bolt Ogerpon into Gardevoirs, into Charizard, into Dragapult Dusknoir, like it just doesn't feel great. Like you can certainly run these kinds of decks over, especially if like you're playing on ladder, you might hit some of these and think, oh, okay, these matchups aren't that bad. But when you get to a regional and you play against any of these stage 2 pilots that really know what they're doing, a lot of times they're just going to feast on Raging Bolt Ogerpon because it's a pretty linear deck with a lot of two prizers, and it can be retreat locked. You can set up multi-prize turns. They aren't going to disrupt your hand typically. So Raging Bolt Ogerpon's fine, but it's not definitely not the deck that I expect to win the event. There are literally 10 decks ahead of it. Um, Actually, let's make that 11 decks ahead of it because I think Terra Box is better than Raging Bolt, most likely. And then we'll also put Flareon Noctowl in here. Flareon Noctowl is honestly, I think Flareon Noctowl with Pidgeot is pretty well rounded. It's just a clunky deck that needs all the pieces at all the right times. So it's not the deck that I expect to win the event, although it does seem well rounded. And we'll put Dragapult Charizard in here. I think it's a very consistent and smooth deck that lacks power. It could potentially be up into B tier. We might be splitting hairs with this B and C separation. And then what do I want to put next? So Pidgeot Control. Pidgeot Control I could probably put into B actually. Because Pidgeot Control is a strong deck with a strong when there's a strong pilot behind it. Um, I don't think the meta is great for it, especially with more retreat locks coming out. So like there's retreat lock in Grimmsnarl, there's retreat lock in the Mega Absol deck, there's retreat lock in Zoroark, there's retreat lock now in the Pidgeot Control. So there's more and more reason to be ready for control strategies with the way the current meta and the competitive game is being played, which I think innately makes Pidgeot Control worse. However, you can totally change up Pidgeot Control, do a lot of different things with it. So I think it's going to just always have that potential, that underlying potential. And then into the next tier, I don't know if I really want to put any of these up here. We could put Kangaskhan Bufalon up here. I think Kangaskhan Bufalon is just worse Mega Absol. Like, the mirror match to me is ridiculous. Like, why would I want to play Kangaskhan Bufalon with no mist energies in it, against into the Mega Absol deck, where they can just go, if I don't flip enough heads, they can just go monkey terminal period. So maybe I'm not thinking about that right, but it just seems like, okay, we're gonna go into the meta losing to the new hot deck, and we're like a different version of the new hot deck that's probably worse. So yeah, that's why I'm gonna put that into the C tier. And then D tier, I think we will just end up putting everything else here into the D tier. I don't think Crustle is like that bad, especially like when you're playing Retreat Lock with Crustle, you can win a lot of games that you probably shouldn't have won. It's totally possible. So I'll just put Crustle at the top of D. And yeah, I think that's going to be my tier list for today. Again, making this on October 22nd after Milwaukee, before Lille. Just another reminder, check out the links in the description down below. I'll have my Metafy link down there for the competitive TCG Masterclass. Highly suggest checking that out and considering purchasing that if you're looking to get better at the game. And I'll also leave the coupon codes for TC Evolutions and Dual Spec. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.